I'm here for you today with a brand new video analyzing the FLL Submerged game board reveal. So this is kind of a sequel, you could say, to my previous video when the trailer was announced, but today I'm going to kind of see where I was right, where I was wrong, my thoughts about this game board. So we're going to start the video right here. Somewhat interesting is I believe this is the first year we actually have a field setup video, and what's also kind of interesting is the fact that they have this no equipment constraint symbol on any of the missions that don't allow equipment, because a lot of times they've had to come back and revise the rules throughout the season as teams come up with different ways of solving the missions. So it's kind of useful that they have this right now to start. So I'm going to play their video now.
This is the Submerged competition field.
That it
there
is.
There are 15 missions that can be done in any order.
So a fairly standard number of missions.
All the missions.
They do feel like they're fairly sparse though, just more small missions than most years.
From your best match will be counted. Your robot must start completely inside a launch area, and you should program it to return to either home area. You can handle and modify your robot between runs while it's completely inside either home area. Gracious professionalism is how we express our core values in First LEGO League. The robot game is an important place to observe gracious professionalism. And
I'm going to pause it quick, and this is actually fairly important because the robot game core value points will be more important than in previous years because they aren't doing core value judging separately anymore. It's going to be judged throughout the project and robot parts of the judging room. So for more information on that, you can just find the rubrics on the first website. Just thought I'd point that out quick because it's a bit of a change than normal.
Each official robot match. Equipment inspection. Your robot and all your equipment must fit into both launch areas and under a height limit of 12 inches. If it is small enough to fit in just one launch area and under this height limit, your team will score points. Mission 1.
Okay.
Coral Nursery. Set up the nursery to grow new
now we get into the actual missions
strong enough for the transport
rather than just the introduction.
If the coral tree is hanging on the coral tree support,
this seems pretty interesting just because it's
and the bottom of the coral tree is in its holder.
It's both kind of fragile and also it requires a lot of dexterity on your robot's part to be able to pick that up and move it to the right place. Like normally, if there wasn't that extra holder points involved, you could just have some attachment drag it home and then have a different attachment that like puts it up high. But with the extra holder point incentive, teams are going to have to come up with different ways to solve this mission. It's going to be interesting to see how teams develop these solutions.
If the coral buds are flipped up,
that seems like one of the more simple missions this year. Just kind of the sort of gimme points.
Track this tagged shark on its journey to new feeding grounds. If the shark is no longer touching the cave, if the shark is touching the mat, and it is at least partly in the shark habitat.
Similar to the experts in Superpower, just kind of a pick and place mission.
Mission 3, Coral Reef. Carefully mount the new coral structure without damaging other nearby flora. If the coral reef is flipped up,
that seems like a pretty simple mission. Kind of interesting.
If a reef segment is standing upright outside,
these are similar to the chicken mission in Cargo Connect, just where you get points if you don't touch it. So something kind of interesting there.
Help the scuba diver transport new coral from the nursery to the reef.
This is a lot like one of the experts from Masterpiece. It even has the little loop piece.
If the scuba diver is hanging on
just another example of something dexterous that you'll need to move around. One of the pick and place missions.
Anglerfish. Scare the anglerfish back into its home within the sunken shipwreck. If the anglerfish is latched within the shipwreck.
That seems fairly easy.
Mission 6. Raise the mast.
Of course, I don't currently have access to a mission field, so I wouldn't be able to know.
Explore what's inside. If the shipwreck's mast is completely raised. Mission 7. Krakens Treasure. Retrieve the chest from the shipwreck to recover a piece of our history. If the treasure chest is completely outside the Kraken's nest,
that is going to be kind of a difficult thing to grab just because it's so small. It's going to take a very, like I've said before, a very dexterous robot able to grab small things easily. So that's going to be interesting just to see how teams decide to solve that.
Artificial habitat. Rearrange the artificial habitat stacks to create safe homes for sea creatures in this area. If an artificial habitat stack segment is completely flat and upright.
That looks really fragile, just like it could collapse. Oh, interesting. So you get more points if it's flat. That's going to be really interesting just how teams figure that out, because it looks like it can move around a lot. Like it could be kind of fragile, but I don't know. It's a very interesting mission.
Mission 9, Unexpected Encounter. Investigate the hydrothermal vent and deliver the sea creature that takes a special interest in you to the cold sea. If the unknown creature is released.
That seems like it's fairly simple to do, but
partly in the cold sea.
Just like having some sort of basket to catch it on the top of your robot and then you drive it home, put it on an attachment of some sort. I don't know. No, another example of kind of a pick and place mission. There's a lot of that this year, retrieving things from one area and putting them in another.
The submersible.
Oh boy, this mission's crazy.
You need a specialized vehicle to withstand the immense pressure of the deep. Send the submersible to explore the opposing field's waters. If your team's yellow flag is down. If the submersible is clearly closer to the opposing field.
As someone who does game announcing for FLL competitions, or at least will be starting to do that this year, this is going to be one of the most insane missions right to the buzzer to like announce, to commentate for, because it's crazy. Like it can only be over one side. And so teams maxing out the board, if there's two of them going against each other, one of them is going to win. Like it's going to involve a whole lot of strategy on the team's parts. Just like, when do you back up? When do you go to solve that mission? So that's going to be really, really fun to see.
Mission 11, Sonar Discovery. Use the ship's sonar technology to scan the surroundings for nearby objects or animals. If one whale is revealed, bonus. If both whales are revealed.
I think that this is going to be another example of a mission where teams are solving it in unintended ways. So I'm going to just back it up quick here.
Objects or animals.
You can just touch these green levers. Like you can just push them. There's no reason you have to use the yellow rod. So that's probably going to be a more efficient way for teams to do it. Because even if you're not solving for both whales, you can just push this green lever, and that's one whale revealed. That's 20 points. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see if teams actually do that, or if they are using the intended solution.
If one whale is revealed, bonus. If both whales are revealed. Mission 12, Feed the Whale. Krill are a whale's favorite food. Collect the krill and feed them to the hungry whale. Krill at least partly in the whale's mouth.
We're going to have a lot of really tall robots this year. I think the forklift is going to, or some sort of modified version of a forklift with like a rack and pinion gear that can have stuff clicked onto it of different attachments. That's probably going to be kind of a popular design just because of the ability for a robot to like push this in and then drop krill in the mouth using the forklift attachment or something like that. So that's going to be interesting to see how teams do that, how the meta develops.
Mission 13, Changing Shipping Lanes. Adjust the cargo ship's route to safely avoid whale migration paths by moving to another shipping lane. If the ship is in the new shipping lane, touching the mat.
This is an example of a mission that looks really easy and is like really simple, but it's the kind of mission that could also be kind of challenging for teams to solve just because that kind of motion it's an unusual motion for a robot to make. It's not just like pushing or pulling or lifting. It's an arc motion. So that's going to be kind of interesting just to see how teams decide to solve that.
Sample collection. Collect samples and artifacts from different locations in the ocean so they can be analyzed by scientists in the lab. If the water sample is completely outside the water sample area, if the seabed sample is no longer touching the seabed,
even more examples of pick and
place
place
is no longer
missions.
The kelp forest,
gonna be kind of interesting.
If a piece of the trident is no longer touching the shipwreck, bonus. If both pieces are no longer touching the shipwreck. Mission 15, research vessel. Deliver the samples and artifacts that your team has...
That trident mission, though, I'm just going to go back to it. That looks like it's going to be a kind of mission that will be kind of a wild card for teams if they're trying to completely max out the board, just because it looks like super
bonus.
Fragile.
If
like
both pieces are no longer
that's an axle in a pinhole. Like that looks like a nightmare to try and get out accurately.
If any of the following are at least partly in the research
but
vessel's
it's kind of
area.
a high risk, high reward
Treasure
thing because
chest,
you get a lot of points
parts,
and you get an additional 10 points if you deliver it to the boat.
Sample,
so that's gonna be fun to see.
If the port's latch is at least partly in the research vessel's loop.
Yeah, like these missions, just grabbing these things and putting them in the boat, that's a lot of points for teams to get. And it kind of takes a while, but just that sheer amount of points, it might be worth it. It's going to involve a lot of strategizing on teams' parts this year.
Precision tokens.
So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Some of my thoughts on this. This board has a really high skill ceiling, I would say. Like it's really good at balancing skill floor and skill ceiling. It has a low enough skill floor that like rookie teams who are just getting started, it's a bunch of 4th graders, for example, they can do it fairly easily. They can have success. They can score points. They can hit their goals. But the top teams are going to really struggle. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's going to be a while before we see teams max out the board completely compared to, yeah, this last year, teams were maxing out the board at like Wisconsin State. Like that was a bit before most teams were expecting to max out the board. So it was a game with a much lower skill ceiling. So this game board, it's got a lot of stuff that looks like it should be easy to solve, but it's going to involve a lot of strategy and innovation on the parts of teams when designing attachments and robots and planning their game board routes. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there for now, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and this season, be sure to subscribe for some more great FLL coding tutorials for you to use.